everybody obviously has an opinion on in a conversation that really doesn't have any right answers. Case in point, as I kind of highlighted and intimated with a bit of my snarky comments surrounding how 850 million of this roughly 1.8 billion dollar surplus would be used. The conversation surrounding the surplus going back to us in the name of tax dollars is an interesting one, right? Because in terms of political messaging, that would obviously be the most popular thing to do. Give the money back to the people. But as I kind of highlighted yesterday, give the money back to the people kind of highlights exactly how far our dollars go in government when they are actually being used appropriately. Case in point, $850 is a $300 return for a Wisconsinite right now. I just told you the entire surplus was worth 1.8 billion. Conservative candidate for governor, and we're going to hit both sides in this conversation, don't you worry, but we're going to start with the conservative side of things. Tom Tiffany is frustrated, referring to this as a backroom deal. And for the record, he is not the only person on either side of the aisle referring to this as a backroom deal, saying this was a backroom deal, sending so many of our hard-earned tax dollars out to different groups that do not deserve it, and they all should be returned to the people. Well, allow me to do some quick math for you here. If $850 million got us all $300, 850 million times 2 is 1.7 billion. That's roughly the entirety of the surplus, which means if you multiply that times 2, you could multiply the checks by 2, meaning everybody would get $600 instead of $300, and we would officially have no surplus going forward. Is that realistically what everybody was hoping for in the state of Wisconsin? I want to gut all of these statewide programs, and I want $600 because that new Metroid game on the Switch 2 looks pretty dope, and I want to make sure that I can afford to get that. So I want my $600 from the check, and that's all I need. That doesn't sound like it makes sense to me. I'm sure inevitably some of you will tell me that's exactly what you want. We're just never going to see eye to eye on that. Not saying you're a bad person. I'm saying you might not understand economics very well, but you're definitely not a bad person. But the idea that anybody would see exactly how far $850 million goes in terms of returning it, how many programs would we have to absolutely gut in order for the return that you received to actually be commensurate with the cost of living? And by the way, later in this hour, we're going to be having a conversation about credit card debt in this country versus the unemployment rate. Things are getting so ugly economically in this country that even Fox News isn't even putting a fight up anymore. They're just like, yeah, inflation sucks, the economy sucks, and if we're being honest, it's probably not going to get any better. Anyway, let's cut taxes for billionaires again, shall we? There comes a time that we have to call a spade here, guys. And while I'm willing to give away these $300 checks in terms of a compromise with the trickle-down right, I am not going to pretend for a single second that this is going to be a net positive for anybody. And inevitably when the Wisconsin GOP is talking about how certain government programs don't have any funding, there will be right-wing talk radio that will be a safe space for conservatives that want to hear that it's Milwaukee's fault. Oh, why can't those liberals spend money better? Like, there will be safe spaces for those. But please understand, inevitably, when we are told that we do not have the money for objectively popular stuff, I will be the guy telling you guys, well, maybe we shouldn't have given away almost $1 billion so we could all get an extra $300 at a time, when that was basically the extra monthly cost that we had for a gallon of gas in the Trump administration. My memory goes forever, and I will not forget that. And the idea that Tom Tiffany is staking his claim that not only was this a bad deal, it's a bad deal not because we're giving away $1 billion in the form of $300 checks, but we're not giving away $2 billion in the name of $600 checks. That's how he wants to frame this conversation, which is his right to do so. But I just don't think the framing checks out. Now, allow me to provide you the perspective from the other side of the aisle. Again, Republicans and Democrats, I'm going to run through a lot of them. As Governor Evers said, he is quoted saying this: I need a majority of each house, whether that is Democrats, Republicans, or a mix. I don't care. All he knows is he needs a majority for this spending deal to get across the finish line. WisconsinPolitics.com or WisPolitics.com has put together an article that has a ton of quotes from all of them. I highly recommend you guys give the entire thing a read, but just the Reader's Digest version. From my, this is Diane Hasselbein, or excuse me, Hasselbein out of Middleton. From my perspective, there is no deal. Said yesterday afternoon, Senate Democrats will have more to say once we see the full details of this expensive proposal, and I've gotten some clarifying information on revenue projections in this time of significant economic uncertainty and upheaval. State Senator Kelda Royce, who is running for governor in this race, is actually quoted by Wisconsin Radio Network. We have it playing during our top of the hour news breaks, saying that the dollars should be returned to the people, and if she were governor, every single one of these dollars would be going to the school system. And like, allow me to refute that. And this is coming from somebody that is absolutely a champion of public schools. The idea that sending the entire $1.8 billion into the school system is returning to the people, I'm just going to have to full-throatedly disagree with. Lord knows I'm a team player, and I want to see teachers compensated appropriately and the appropriate amount of funds going into the public school system to make sure that kids got a fair shot at life. And as we've covered a billion times on this show, struggling test grades are part of the school system's fault, but that is a multifaceted conversation that I don't think people are taking seriously, surrounding parents' abilities to stay home and raise children, the impact that lockdowns had on students back in 2020 as they try and reintegrate into a school system, plus a number of other factors that as a non-parent I couldn't possibly agree with. But you are asking, some Democrats are, including State Senator Kelda Royce, you're asking the people of Wisconsin to give away the entirety of their surplus to a school system that, to be perfectly frank, not all of us have children. And so, just from a political perspective, when you say we're trying to return the tax surplus to the people, and the Republicans are out there saying exactly, we want to literally return it to the people in the form of $600 checks for everybody, that again, I cannot stress enough, will do nothing to alleviate the cost of living crisis that so many people are trying to survive right now. When you come out and say, no, our intention is to deliver it to the people by sending the entire thing to the school system, a school system that, again, not exclusively laying the blame on the Wisconsin school system, but a school system that is not generating the kind of metrics that if I were a bad actor, if I wanted this show to exclusively get listened to by MAGAs and go national by being able to espouse the right-wing talking points, I could point to test scores, I could point to deteriorating school systems, and I could point to a Republican Party trying to give you your money back and say, which party's really trying to return this surplus to the people and which party's trying to inflate an already bloated government. It's a very easy argument to make. Not a good faith argument, but it's an easy argument to make nevertheless here. And most importantly, both sides of the aisle are referring to what Voss, LeMahieu, and Evers did over the course of the last couple of weeks and months here as a backroom deal. And I'm here to tell you right now, nothing could be further from the truth. These conversations were going on for months. Sometimes people were involved, other times they weren't. Sometimes the information is made public and done in front of the media. Other times it was done behind closed doors. This is quite literally how most politics happens. And to pretend that what took place here is unique, what's going on in Tennessee or Alabama with the maps, that is unique. When you see the tornado sirens blaring and you see this group of white guys, quick, do what we can to eliminate black representation as fast as we can before the tornadoes scoop us up. When you see what's going on in Tennessee, that's backroom deals. That's behind the scenes BS that's getting ignored. What's taking place here is trying to address a surplus that's been in existence for far too long at this point and trying to get something across the finish line. One person in my chat here is saying it's buying votes. They return the surplus to the people, but not reduce tax burdens. It's a band-aid. Exactly. No, I'm right there with you. This is not me all of a sudden turning heel and being like, actually, trickle down has a lot of merits. No, I'm right there with you. There's no effort here to increase taxes on billionaires. There's nothing here addressing the actual tax revenues. Totally. I'm right there. And here's the thing, Jay, it's not going to buy votes. $300 4 months before the election isn't going to buy votes. I'm pretty sure it's when it's coming out in July here is when we're all expecting to receive these checks. It's not going to be able to buy the votes because, to be frank, and you'll see exactly how high the cards are stacked against the GOP given what they've done to the economy the last 2 years. But we're in a pretty crappy situation economically right now in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, it's a historic crappiness. And a $300 check isn't going to get anything across the finish line. In my opinion, I think there's more Republicans than are willing to admit that they have students in the school system and would like to see these schools funded. And you're seeing whether it is maternity leave, whether it is school funding, you're seeing capitulation on some of these Democratic cornerstones that I have been talking about on this program for the last 3.5 years. And I don't think it's in any coincidence that we're seeing this with the first set of elections reflecting the new maps with historic unpopularity levels brought about from the top of the ticket. Notice how on the Wisconsin GOP primary, there really isn't one, right? It's Tom Tiffany and nobody else for governor. So he's basically just already running on his platform and those loony liberals. And what are we going to do about them? You notice how Donald Trump's name isn't mentioned in a single advertisement coming from the Republican side? This cat doesn't want anything to do with Donald Trump. He wants Tom Tiffany's name to be separated from Donald Trump in every possible way, despite the fact that he has essentially voted for Donald Trump 100% of the time, because this economy is trash. And much like how the Bidenomics is working line didn't work on 70% of Americans, the golden age of prosperity line isn't working on many Americans either. And a lot of people are expecting an absolute shellacking come November, whether it be in Wisconsin or across this country. So to me, this idea with the surplus package from a political perspective is actually politically expedient for both sides of the aisle. It addresses property taxes marginally, not enough to actually make an impact. It gives everybody $300 and it gives you that school funding. Because I'll be real with you, liberals, if Tom Tiffany comes away with a win, I'm not expecting it, but if he does, you get no money for public schools. So then all of a sudden, the number that's being proposed sounds a lot more appealing than zero. So from that perspective, Democrats are on board with it, and it takes this conversation about property taxes off the table, at least in any kind of good faith conversation about them. From a conservative perspective, you return some of the surplus to the people. It's not going to be nearly enough money, and everybody's going to hate on it for that. While at the same time delivering for public schools, because everybody has children in public schools, and pretending that it is uniquely a liberal talking point, I think, is a laughable assertion. Teacher salaries might be a little more so, but making sure that everybody's students are able to thrive should be a bipartisan conversation. So there are positives coming out of this, even though it's not necessarily something that I would want to sign on to. It's not something that I think is going to materially make lives better for everyday Wisconsinites. As somebody who worked in the special needs field for almost a half a decade, I know that industry is chronically underfunded and has some of the best people on the planet working for it, and they deserve to make a living wage and have the resources to be able to do the job to the best of their ability. And this surplus agreement delivers on that to an extent. I recognize that there are people frustrated that they view what the GOP has done for the last decade and a half is a theft of teachers' salaries and public politicians all across this country, or public positions, I should say, all across this country. I recognize that. I recognize nobody is happy with this, and I would even count myself amongst those people. But I also understand the logic here. And when you see the way people are talking about it, there comes a time when it's like, guys, the everyday person just needs a win right now. It's about time that something gets delivered. And I am not signing my name to most of what we are seeing come across the finish line in this. But things need to be delivered. As somebody who doesn't have a kid in public school, but definitely benefited from going to a public school, we need to make sure these are funded. We need to make sure they are taken seriously. We need to make sure that the people who are going there feel safe in the schools and they feel like they are actually getting an education. And the teachers need to feel like they are making a living wage in an economy when a smaller and smaller percentage of us do not feel like that is the case. So you see these quotes coming out, and you'll hear them again during the top of the hour news. And this won't be the last time we talk about the surplus, especially if it gets killed. And we will have actually, so it's tentative right now. We do have confirmation. I'll be speaking to State Senator Chris Alfheim tomorrow at 10:30, but she did inform me that everybody in the state houses was informed that they need to be in Madison and be ready essentially on a beck and call. So there's no guarantees that that conversation will be happening tomorrow if they call some kind of thing in that moment. But assuming everything goes according to plan, at 10:30 tomorrow, we'll be speaking to State Senator Chris Alfheim about this. I'll be reaching out to some conservative counterparts as well to get their thoughts on the matter too. So we'll have a little bit of a how the sausage is made perspective as well regarding this surplus. So that'll be tomorrow. That's the end of my thoughts on the matter for right now. But that's my attitude here. Ryan says 850 million, roughly the same that the Republicans borrowed in a budget a couple years ago to pay for transportation alone, which, I mean, again, you're not going to get me defending that kind of stuff. Ernie just simply says he's still waiting for his tariff refund. Don't hold your breath, but who knows? We might be able to get there. Katie just letting me know she's the first person to win from outside the box, which is awesome. Brian out in Fremont says, to me, the budget windfall has been fought over since COVID. Now officials that are not up for re-election distribute it. Hypocrites. Well, yeah, that sticks out to me as well, Brian. That it takes these people retiring to finally do the right or wrong thing, depending on the perspective that you have on how this money is being spent. And that's not lost on me. It's like how people were willing to be like, you know what? Joe Biden did seem like he was aging now that I think about it. The second he announced he was no longer running for office. It's like how Republicans are like, you know what? Trump can be a jagoff now that I think about it, the second they no longer have to worry about winning Republican votes. And as far as I'm concerned, whether you're in the media, politics, or an everyday individual, if it takes you no longer having stakes to be able to say what you're obviously seeing with your eyes, I don't respect you. Trust me, the hard shell, the exterior shell that I have built, talking crap on the Democratic Party in an election year has made me lose faith. It does not make me shy away from calling out the hypocrites, much like you are, Brian. And you're exactly right. If you have to wait until you don't have skin in the game to actually act in any way, you're not a real person, in my humble opinion, because it takes real guts to actually stand up against a two-party system that sucks, even when that means calling out the party that you are more aligned with. Randy says Tiffany also has a terrible record on conservation in the outdoors. I have seen that as well. He's trying to lean into the I grew up on a farm thing. But again, the Republican Party doesn't get to be the party of remove all the regulations, trash the environment, and also isn't it important that we conserve the environment? You don't get to do both. So pick a lane. I don't care which one you pick, but you absolutely don't get to live in a world. It's kind of like how for the last 3.5 years of this show, the Democrats are like, we want to increase funding for schools. And Republicans say, well, there isn't any funding and we're not raising taxes on people. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to increase the funding for schools. And Democrats say, okay, then we want to increase funding by putting solar panels in places and using the surplus of energy created to kind of create a surplus, much like the school systems did in Arkansas, where they turned a $250,000 deficit into a $1.8 million surplus because they installed 1,400 solar panels around the school and just waited 3 years. And Republicans say, well, no, we got to save the farmland, so no solar panels to generate the revenue either. Okay, fine. Then we'd like to legalize marijuana. We're the only state in this, we're an island right now of prohibition for marijuana. Minnesota, Michigan, Illinois, Iowa, all of these at least have medicinal, if not full-blown legal, and we think we can generate extra revenue that way, and we'll use that system to be able to fund the school system. Well, actually, we're 1600s Quakers, and we don't want to legalize marijuana either because that's the devil's lettuce. Okay, fine. You say you don't want to fund the schools. You say you don't want to do anything to increase the funding for the schools. We can't generate extra revenues for the schools. So what's your plan? Collapse the schools and do vouchers? Get the hell out of the way. Thank you for playing. Like, you don't get to be the party of there is no funding for that, and then also be the party of we're not going to do anything to increase revenues to create the funding for that. You got to pick a lane. You can't be, well, we're preserving the farmland, unless, of course, you want to dump all your crap onto some beautiful national lands, in which case go right ahead. You got to make that dollar. Like, no, pick a lane. I don't care which one you pick, and then own it. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's because I do it every single day for a living that it doesn't seem that hard to be able to do that, but I don't understand why politicians can't just have opinions and stick by them. Like, that's kind of the whole point, right? You're supposed to be running for this stuff, not because of what you think people want to hear, but because of what you think the best solutions are. And then if the most people agree with you, that means you have popular ideas. We just got a bunch of cowards running around licking their fingers, holding their fingers up to the air, trying to determine what is the most popular thing right now. Believe you me, you're going to see a bunch of milquetoast centrists talking like a bunch of Bernie bros in 2026 and beyond. And the new conversation on the left side of politics is going to be about who actually stands against the working class and who stands for them, because they're all going to have the same attitudes. Right? They all know what the popular talking points are at this point. The question is how many of them actually mean it in 2026, and that's going to be an interesting conversation. Yeah, Pilgrims, Puritans, and Quakers, Carla. Those are the jokes that I like to make on this show. It's a hard place to be right now, because I want to see this surplus used in a meaningful way. And we have been sitting on it. Brian says since COVID, it seems like it's been an Act 10 issue, to be frank, Brian. And I recognize that I've kind of jumped into this late to the game, but it's impacted me just as much as it impacted the rest of you. I used to, for those of you that are OG listeners, we used to have daily conversations about the surplus and how to spend it, and I'd be breaking down the numbers and showing you how certain programs work. And after a year and a half of just no movement and almost no even real conversation coming from our political class, I was like, well, I'm actually going to go nuts if I talk about this every single day until they do something, because they're never going to do it. And is that the strategy? Maybe. But we're finally at a point where maybe something might accidentally happen. It's exciting, but it also leaves a lot to be desired. And these elections coming up have something to do with that as well. There's a lot of emotions going into it, and those emotions are oftentimes guided by the fact that there is a 6 in 10 chance that if you are listening to me talk about this right now, you're wondering about your bills. And that comes with this lack of movement politically. And yeah, Republicans, the fact that you sit there and complain about how your tax dollars aren't used to benefit you and then vote for people that kill any programs that might accidentally use your tax dollars to benefit you gets really frustrating. But like, I feel like we're hitting an impasse with it right now. I feel like enough people are waking up to it. They know trickle down is a dumb idea. They know that the tax rebate solution, while it'll be a nice to have, when you get an extra $300 in July, you're not going to pout. You're not going to sit there saying, I don't want this. But like, it definitely isn't going to make your life better or worse. There comes a time when I think we just have to wake up to it. I hope this passes, not because I think it's good, but because the people need a win. And I think it's time that we see this win happen. Jim says in my YouTube chat he thinks the last politician to actually pick a lane was FDR. You might be right. Well, no, honestly, I mean, yeah, he's the worst president in contemporary American history, but Reagan had a brand. Reagan had an ideology. It was a stupid one. It was a bad one. It didn't put America in a better place. But I mean, nevertheless, it existed. He at least stuck to his guns. And 45 years later, despite the fact that the Republican Party has no evidence that trickle down economics has ever worked, they're still saying it. So, like, there's a brand that exists out there. But yeah, in my voting lifetime, Obama running as a hyper progressive and then governing as a milquetoast liberal, Donald Trump running on drain the swamp only to show up and become the swampiest person ever. I'd argue Joe Biden ran on his platform of wait, what year is it? And he stuck to that most of his presidency. So we at least got a little consistency out of that guy. But by and large, you might be right. I'll tell you what. We'll throw it a break here, and when we come back, we'll talk about this from the macro perspective here. Even Fox News has given up trying to defend this economy right now, while Donald Trump is standing in front of a helicopter telling you he does not care about your cost of living. And as the biggest Biden opponent in progressive talk radio, I would argue that if Biden said something similar to that, there would have been an absolute year-long meltdown coming from our most delicate snowflakes out there in the media sphere. I can tell my Reagan comments ticked off one person in my TikTok chat, so I'm going to give those a read, and maybe we'll have some fun with those on the other side of the break as well. Everybody stay right where you are. If you want to chime in, 920-281-1150, 920-281-1150, and we'll be back. Short break here, just about 3 minutes. We'll be right back. Outside the Box, WHBY. All right, we're back. Outside the box. Ben Cominos, WHBY. I love doing this show for a new audience. The most recent comment I have says, I just tuned in and you have the audacity to blame Democrats for the situation that we're in. And it's like, well, there is no Trump without Obama. Without evil, there would be no good. So it must be good to be evil sometimes, as Satan once said in the South Park musical. Jaramani says, I like that a good portion of the surplus is going to the schools, but if the Wisconsin legislature doesn't do anything to fix the funding formula, the schools are back in the same leaking boat soon. Well, see, that's perfect. It's like she knew I needed an assist from across the YouTube spectrum. That is the Democrats to a T. When Biden was in office, they tried to forgive student loans. Republican Supreme Court blocked it. They didn't try to go about it the way Sanders suggested, using the 1965 Educational Act, because that might have accidentally worked, which was not the Democratic goal. And then they just kind of stopped trying, and he ended up forgiving student loans for like 3% of the population. Like if you were born into a mixed race family on a Tuesday and were, and were left-handed, you got some kind of benefit for your student loans, and nobody else did. What you're describing right there, Jarmani, is Democratic problems in a nutshell. Okay, you tried to forgive student loan debt to bail out millennials and some of the elder Gen Zs that were stuck in crippling debt. As I oftentimes highlight, I had 60 grand in student debt when I retired. It just so happens that I hit the job lottery in my 20s and was able to get out of it. If I were on the track that I decided to start in my 30s, in my 20s, forget about it. I'm right there with everybody else, going through the exact same experience that everybody else is experiencing, despite educating myself, holding a job my entire adult life, doing all the things that they claim are going to ultimately lead to this kind of outcome here. You know what the Democrats never proposed? Any kind of effort to address the cost of college. There is no effort to say, you know what? Providing federal funds, while well-intentioned and allowing poor people to go to school, but not providing a back end to prevent the colleges from gouging us, just increased the cost of college to astronomical accounts, and then didn't do anything to address it. And it's like, okay, you tried to bail out a percentage, which had it been successful in 10 years, we just would have had a new crop of 20-somethings with a new crop of billions of dollars of debt that they were not going to be able to get out of, because college, just like so many other things in America, is kind of like a pyramid scheme. And the later you get into it, eventually there's only so many college level jobs that offer six-figure salaries to be filled by people that go to college to be able to get those six-figure salaries. So the Republican strategy is die broke, losers. Have you ever considered just not educating yourself? But the Democratic strategy is, okay, look, we're going to try our best, and when it fails, we're really going to need you to not complain that we only tried once and then never really revisited the conversation again. And that's kind of the system, and it's what Jaramani in my YouTube chat is kind of highlighting on the state level here in Wisconsin. By shoveling out $1 billion to the schools and $850 million in the form of $300 freaking checks for every Wisconsinite, it eventually we are going to be sitting here being like, hey, how are we funding Badger Care again? And then inevitably there's going to be cuts. And it's going to be because we are not addressing the revenue situation. You know, I know I'm going to get some eye rolls when I say it, but Mr. Mamdani showed up in New York, inherited a $12.5 billion surplus, and in 5 months, he was able to get $8 billion in federal funding from the state level, taxed second homes, crash pads of billionaires, for an extra $1.5 billion, and I can't remember the third plan. And in 5 months, he turned a $12.5 billion deficit into an even number without gutting a single social program and actually creating a couple. That's what actual governance can look like. And that's coming from a bleeping mayor We've got governors, senators, congresspeople being like, guys, I don't know what you want me to do. And one dude can show up, a dude who the Democrats and Republicans worked overtime to prevent from getting into office, much like they are doing for Graham Plattner, much like they are doing for Al Said out in Michigan right now. It's because they show the ineffectual nature of milquetoast blue MAGA leadership. And it's like, no, Democrats do have the right ideas. They just have feckless leadership that are just bought and paid for as the Republican Party. And as a result, they can't fix these kind of things. Case in point, man, my TikTok chat is buzzing and I want to read it so bad, but I know it's going to throw me off my my train of thought here, so I'm not going to. I promise I'm going to read what you guys have to say during the commercial break, though. You should follow this account. We're live 9 to 11 Monday through Friday. If you like it here, you'll have fun here. Follow this account right now. Sheila says Brian is correct. The public schools have been fighting and for funding since Act 10, along with the surge of vouchers for students to attend public schools. Both have taken a huge bite out of public school funding. If you want your community to thrive, your public schools have to thrive. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And it's not a coincidence that these referendums pass all across our state all the time. Anytime we're like, hey, we want you guys to pay more, but it's going to go to educating children. It always freaking passes because that's objectively a popular thing to do. Michelle says, and I apologize, Michelle, I meant to read your first message and I got distracted, but I see I got you with the, wait, what year is it being Biden's platform? She said, I agree with your assessment on the situation. I'm frustrated with a lot of this deal, but leaving the money sit doesn't seem like a good choice either. I'm counting on your steel trap mind to remind us all of this, and if the Dems take the state over and everyone starts to complain about the surplus turning into no money or anything worse, a deficit. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm telling you right now, because I think that's where this is ultimately headed, is it's going to end up being a deficit. Also, we could all have an extra $300 because the trickle-down crew keeps saying that we need to do trickle-down. I'm just saying. Tom out in Freedom. I can't remember school referendums for operational costs until Act 10. School referendums were used to get funding for building a new school or improvements. No, I think that's real. I think a lot of the quote-unquote surplus was generated by underfunding a lot of public schools, and I think that is kind of a talking point that has been beat to death in this state, not because it's inaccurate, but because there comes a time, and this is a really hard thing for a person like me to say out loud, because I pride myself on being a fairly pragmatic individual. If we're hitting a point now where I think we just have to come to grips with some populations of people are not going to capitulate to facts. And like, that sucks. Like, that genuinely sucks. But it's just a real situation that I think the longer we kind of push back against it and don't come to grips with it, the longer we're going to be beating our heads against this wall. Because, like, yeah, is it a surplus? Well, Ben, don't call it a surplus. Because it's technically not a surplus. It's just unpaid dollars. Yeah, okay, fine. Let's look really quickly at what the winning campaign message was in 2024.
They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat. Eat the cat.
If this is a viable campaign strategy, maybe trying to talk about actually it's not a surplus, it's just underpaying the teachers enough. If they're eating the dogs and cats is a winnable election strategy in 2024, you just might be barking up the wrong tree, and you're going to have to find a different way to kind of push that message out there. People on video enjoying dancing, Ben, you're welcome. That song always gets me going. It's the latest club bumper that I think everybody should be. If you haven't downloaded it yet, please do. It's We're Eating the Cats and Dogs by a sitting U.S. president. In any event, I get your messages and I understand the frustration with all of it. And again, it only stacks because what's the line? All politics are local. That's a thing people say regularly. These local politics matter to us so intently because the national politics. I stopped at Quick Trip to get the water flavoring that you guys, if you're watching the video stream, you see in the water when I'm taking a sip. I went and bought some of that. Didn't need gas because I drive as little as humanly possible lately. $4.69 in the Fox Valley. The wheels have completely come off here. So when you hear $300, you're like, oh, good, at least I'll get 100 gallons of gas covered. Not even, what the hell am I talking about? Closer to 75 gallons of gas covered. By this little stimmy bill check that I'm going to get. But fundamentally, it's not going to make or break you, but it's all stacking. In case in point, I'm going to start this segment now, and we will kind of carry. I'll tell you what, short commercial break, then we'll start this segment and we'll carry it over into the 10 o'clock hour here as well, surrounding just how bad the economic straits have gotten. We'll be back in just a little bit. We're going to start this conversation, then we'll keep it rolling. I'll be right back. Outside the Box, Ben Cominos, WHBY. You know what's better than Googling a plumber and hoping for the best? Checking the reviews and seeing your neighbors already trust and love them. Roush Plumbing has the Google reviews to back it up. Fox Valley homeowners are raving about the fast, friendly, reliable service. And here's something you don't see every day: a free text line to a real plumber. Got a question before you schedule? Text it. Sometimes that's all you'll need. And with spring rains coming, don't wait to make sure your sump pump is ready. Call or text Roush Plumbing, the plumbing and remodeling company the Fox Valley depends on. Find that free text line and more info at timroushplumbing.com. All right, we're back. Betsy called me during the break, so we're going to do inflation on the other side. We have just about 2.5 minutes here, and I told Betsy she could have it. What's up, Betsy?
Okay, well, I want to just give an overarching comment on why people think that a $300 check would be great, why people want interest rates to be lowered, why people want what's best for them. And it's because what question do we ask when we're voting? We say, am I better off now than I was 2 years ago, 4 years ago, right? That's always the question. Politicians say, are you better off now than you were 2 years ago? If not, vote for so-and-so. So there's a beautiful word in the Hawaiian language and in the Hawaiian culture called kuleana. And it means you have a responsibility to care about and live like you care about the good of all, right? You have a responsibility for your whole community, not just yourself. And we don't have that in the United States. We typically don't have that. And that's why socialism and any kind of socialist ideology is a really heavy lift for Americans who are trained to think, but am I better off? Ooh, my dog is still alive because a foreigner didn't eat it, so Trump must have done a good job, right?
Right.
I'm better off because I'm a zillionaire and I don't pay any taxes. But what about thinking, the question being, are the least advantaged people in your neighborhood, in your community, better off? We don't ask that question. And if we did, it would change the culture. But it's like all of these socialist ideas are dropping, these seeds are on rocky soil, right? And until we change the soil, dropping all of these progressive ideas on rocky soil, they're not going to grow. The soil needs to be changed, and that's a mindset, a culture shift to kuleana. Look the word up. It's a beautiful word. It's a beautiful way of living.
I like it. I think it's a very poignant message to wrap this hour up. I appreciate that. I appreciate the sentiment, and I learned a new word today, which is always great. So thank you very much, Betsy. We'll talk soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I absolutely love the sentiment, and there is some truth to that. I think it depends on the population of people you're talking about. Honestly, there's a lot to unpack there, but unfortunately, I have 10 seconds to do it. Download the WHBY app, follow me on YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok, and we'll be back on the other side of the news. TikTok chat wants to know if you brought brownies today, Landon. All right, good. Just checking. The people are watching, Landon. It's on you at this point here. Yeah, no, I feel that, man. Do I feel that these days? Thank you very much. Here's Hooper. All right, we've returned. Outside the Box, Ben Cominos, WHBY, Political Voices Network. Outside the Box is brought to you by Roush Plumbing and Remodeling, the plumbing and remodeling company that the Fox Valley depends on. If you're just joining us, we spent the better part of the first hour kind of reassessing the conversation about the surplus here in Wisconsin, how it looks as though we are expecting this to find a majority, or at least I was yesterday. There's a lot of vocal consternation that's out there lately that makes me question whether or not we're going to see an end to this conversation soon. But only time will tell, of course. I've been kind of teasing this all show, and I would like to get into it here. I'm going to rapid fire these texts, and then we'll do it. Chris says, haven't had a car since August. I have 2 bikes, 1 e-bike and 1 regular one. If I remember correctly, Chris, you and I actually met in person at Oktoberfest back in, it might have been October of 22, if not 22, definitely 23. And you showed up on a bike. So that's kind of been a thing of yours for a while. And it's absolutely awesome that you're in a position to do that. I love that for the way that you kind of handle things here. Do you do that in the winter months as well? Because that's if everyone had your attitude, the climate crisis would have already been put to bed, in my opinion. And I know you're skeptical of the climate crisis, but the fact that you ride a bike every day makes me okay with that. Phil says, personally, I can't wait for the Republicans to say that our state has any type of deficit. Literally, as we speak, there are steady streams of vehicles leaving our state and driving to the north, south, and west for legal weed. These vehicles leave our state Monday through Sunday, 12 hours a day. I'm not a financial analyst or anything, but I'm guessing that money Wisconsin could use. I would have to agree with you there, Phil. And I think it's a bad faith argument to be like, well, where is the money going to come from? I have an idea. I have a general idea as to where it might come from. Betsy, or it just says, this one just simply says, David Alnina says, I vote for Betsy. which now I'm getting frustrated because normally you guys are voting for me. So it looks like Betsy and I are running against one another now. Dawn says, love Betsy's input on the show. She's always right on. Love her analogy this morning, as did I, Dawn. And for those of you that missed it, may I suggest checking the show out on the WHBY app, or more importantly, I do have a YouTube page that you can subscribe to that would help me out tremendously. I yelled at you guys on Monday saying I needed one more to get to 150 or 250 subscribers, and that got me up to 260. So I'm going to yell at you again. You can go subscribe to that. Just search my name, Ben Cominos, on YouTube. You can go listen to what Betsy had to say in the previous hour there. I am going to pivot sort of into the national scene here, because the clip of the day that I knew everybody would be getting into here is going to be the focus of the show today. And no, it's not this one.
They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. They're eating the dogs.
No, that's not the clip that I'm talking about here. This is the clip that I am talking about, because to me, this highlights essentially a white flag regarding the economy. And I know it's trite at this point, and I know it's redundant, and you guys know I do not like the Biden administration, and I'm one of the loudest people against what was going on then. If Joe Biden had this answer during his presidency, this would have been a story for a year and a half. And something tells me that this story is not going to last until Friday in the Trump administration.
When you're negotiating with Iran, Mr. President, to what extent are Americans' financial situations motivating you to make a deal?
Not even a little bit. The only thing that matters when I'm talking about Iran, they can't have a nuclear weapon. I don't think about Americans' financial situation. I don't think about anybody. I think about one thing. We cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. That's all. That's the only thing that matters.
Okay, so he just flat out said he is not concerned. He does not lay awake wondering how you're going to afford things during this economic crisis brought about almost solely as the decision of one president circumventing Congress. The act of circumventing Congress, not unique. The cost of living crisis that we are currently facing as a result of this decision, absolutely the making of the sitting president of the United States. What I played you there is frustrating, but it shouldn't be shocking. And for the record, I'm going to let this story die. It's not like I'm going to play this audio every single day between now and 2028 in an effort to get Democrats elected or anything. It's going to be on the rest of you guys to actually hold this person to account. Here's what I do want to play for you guys, though, is that Fox News is the state media effort to kind of combat the negative messaging surrounding this presidency. Donald Trump has given up on trying to defend his message, and part of me wonders if the game plan is, well, don't worry, Fox News will polish this turd and we'll have people. Hell, I had a guy in my Facebook comments earlier today saying, yeah, we'll gladly be in this much credit card debt and fall and watch this affordability crisis just absolutely consume us, because the other alternative is Iran having a nuclear weapon. And I said, I'm sure you believe that, bud. That's exactly what Fox News told you to say, and here you are saying it to me now. So it looks like a job well done by all parties involved. Here was Fox News' effort to try and spin what's going on in the economy today. And when I say try and spin, I mean not try and spin at all.
Now the expectation is not really for inflation to get much better throughout most of 2026. That's the story that you're seeing in these reports. Essentially, there's going to be some tariff inflation passing through on the good side. Now you have energy prices impacting services. It probably just isn't going to get that much better from here. And I think investors know that. They're focused on the AI story and hoping this inflation story doesn't get too much worse.
It's going to. Spoiler warnings. It's going to. And I'm not happy about it. Not excited about it. This is a ticked off voice. It's not going to get any better. And it's going to sink a lot of people on these tickets across the nation from the GOP. We've had a caller who's waiting here for a second. On the other side of the call, though, we're going to take this inflation is only going to get worse perspective to the next level here regarding credit card debt and unemployment rate that paints a very ugly picture for everybody involved, but especially the people who have to stake their political reputation to this current iteration of the economy. Hello, you're on Outside the Box.
Hello, this is Dale.
Hey, Dale.
Hey, I just want to inject something positive here. I've been a high school baseball coach and American Legion baseball coach in the Appleton area for 43 years. We just had a reunion of our 2016 state championship baseball team at St. Mary's Catholic High School. The story there, over 100 kids, the coaches were talking about this, over 100 kids that went to college, went to tech school, went in the military. And we've only got 2 kids that I don't really want to get into for life problems, but success rates, buying houses, having good jobs, having kids, 98% of our kids, and I had maybe a small part of it, played a small role in it, but these kids are doing well. They're all buying homes. We got a concrete contractor.
I was wondering where you went, Dale. I've been doing show after show and haven't been told that the housing crisis is in my head. Did you know we actually have a record for people selling homes compared to buying homes right now because they're so unaffordable? Like, we've never seen it this bad ever in America as we see it right now.
I know you took me out of context. You took me out of context. All I said was the housing market's getting better, and I quoted a local banker.
Yeah, no one else sees that happening. Is all.
Years ago.
No one else sees that happening. Is my point. Like, I hope you're right. I hope you see it happening, and I want to find the guy selling those homes. Maybe he's selling magic beans, and I can go live in the sky. But I don't know that there's any evidence to back up these claims. But I am happy for your baseball league kids being able to buy a couple homes. Hopefully they can rub that magic on the entirety of the younger generations here.
Well, 98 out of 100 are doing great. And, there's a lot of ways to do it in this world. You go in the military, you come home and you get the GI Bill. I mean, there's ways to go to a junior college. You don't have to come out with, $100,000 plus in student loan debt. You don't have to.
I'm going to remember these conversations, Dale, when the Democrats just absolutely drub the Republicans in November and then do it again in November of 28. And when you try to call and tell me that things are trending worse, I'm going to remind you of these moments, and I will tell you that you need to stop expecting so much. All right?
I'm just trying to be optimistic.
All right. Thank you. I don't know what the hell that was. Hello, you're on Outside the Box.
Hey, Ben, I'm just wondering that your last caller, what age group he's talking about, but I kind of don't believe him because the suicide rates right now are very high among younger, especially men, and extremely high with veterans. So I don't know where he's coming from.
Yeah, I don't know either, Cindy, but everybody's opinion is valid on this show, even the ones that are clearly fabricated. I would like to highlight, though, a larger picture here, though, that unfortunately will spit directly in the face of Dale's optimism, but I am beholden to reality, which, trust me, sucks even more than a lot of you guys know. If you do not follow me on my social media accounts, I have a chart up available on the page right now, and it shows time from 2000 until today, and it is measured against the percentage of Americans that are in credit card delinquency, 90 days or more delinquent on their credit cards. Now, in my early 20s, I was in a position where I had to put gas on credit cards, where I would put food on credit cards. And I think anyone listening to me that's been in that situation knows that that's not a particularly appealing place to be. But I can't empathize with that. And I am not saying that that action is somehow unique to what is going on right now. The difference is that you used to be able to find your way out of it. Here's what I would like to highlight to you. And this is why I'm doing this. I graduated in 2010. The high for 90-day credit card delinquencies was in 2010. It was over 13% of the population had 90 days delinquencies after the recession in 2008. The unemployment rate in that same year skyrocketed from roughly 4.3% to just under 10%. So unemployment went to 10%. People lost their livelihoods. They lost their ability to pay interest or for credit cards and other things like that. They lost the ability to pay. And as a result, delinquencies shot through the roof. If A, then B. You lose your job. You can't pay. You can't pay. You go delinquent. Delinquencies go up. You can draw a straight line to how we ended up there. Here's where we are today. The credit card delinquency rate days or longer is at 13.1%. We have re-achieved the high of 2010 during a recession when unemployment shot through the roof. Here's the thing. When I say unemployment shot through the roof, it went from 4.3 to 9.8. We are currently sitting at 4.3% unemployment, meaning that we have the same levels of record of credit card delinquencies mixed with traditional levels of unemployment in this country, meaning that people are working, they are making money, but the money that they are making from their job is not commensurate to the astronomical cost of living that we have been dealing with here. I saw Larry talking about it in my YouTube chat. I'm trying to find it now. True inflation from 2020 until now is 28.25%. And I did not go in depth. I didn't check his source or anything like that, but I'd be interested. How much of inflation is actually the real metrics that go into inflation, and how much of inflation is just a handful of companies jacking up our prices for no other reason other than they want to jerk us around a little bit? And then you see that the delinquencies are hitting record levels despite the fact that the job market is not reflecting those, meaning people are working. They're doing all the things that you need to do to get by in this nation, and yet credit card debt is still accruing. Why? Because they're using it to pay for astronomical grocery and gas prices because we're in the middle of a cost of living crisis. The sitting president says, I don't consider at all whether or not people are going through a cost of living crisis or not. I have to make sure that Iran doesn't have any nukes, like what Benjamin Netanyahu has been telling me that they've been doing since 1991. And Fox News has gone so far as to be like, yeah, inflation's bad. Realistically, it's only going to get worse as time goes on. And you guys should probably all just brace for that, because we don't see this administration pumping the brakes or doing anything. And unless you worked on Dale's baseball team, life is getting more unaffordable for the rest of us here. So, like, for the fortunate few of you guys that were affiliated with that team, I don't know how you guys did it so well, but for the rest of us plebes that were unable to kind of find a way to escape this system, well, I got some news for you guys. You're not alone. It's so funny. I got Dale on the phone line telling me that I'm making this stuff up from a liberal perspective, and I got some jag in my TikTok line telling me, like, I'll tell you why you hit the job lottery. You're a white man. Like, think you're liberal. Get out of here. Get out of here. Hello, you're on Outside the Box.
Yeah, good morning, Ben. It's Gary calling. Say, I was just doing a little math here, and I remember in the early 60s, getting out of high school, guys were getting jobs in the mill. They could earn anywhere from around $2 an hour. Okay, no education.
Yeah, same in Pittsburgh with the steel mill.
Yeah, $2 an hour. And I figured it out that what's the average price of a home today? About $420. And if you divide that $2 an hour or multiply it by the price of homes in that era were somewhere around $10,000 to $12,000 for a starter home, a modest home, 1,200 square feet, 1,100, whatever. Not a 3,000 square foot.
I feel you. No, I get it.
On a 50-foot lot. So if you earn $2 an hour and the house costs $12,000, you divide that into 420, that's 35 times the price of housing going up what your wages are. So if the wages were $2 an hour, now you'd have to be earning $70 an hour because it's 35 times. So who gets a job starting right out of high school at $144,000 a year? Now that's inflation. To put it in perspective, people don't understand that. And if you earn 40 today out of high school, you're only earning 1/3 of what a high school kid earned in 1960s.
Absolutely. Like it's remarkable what they've done to purchasing power. And that's been a bipartisan effort to set us up for failure there. But you're exactly right. And I couldn't agree with you more. And I appreciate the call, Gary. And like you see those metrics, and depending on the numbers, they're always different, but they always trend in the same direction. And I've used it with my own family life. Like my own dad bought the home that he still currently lives in, that I was raised in from age 3 to infinity, that is now worth well over $500,000 on a salary stocking cigarette machines and vending machines around the city of Pittsburgh. You go find me someone that can afford to pay rent with a job like that in 2026. You know what I mean? But that's just me. Rod says the previous caller is probably right, only because he's coaching upper middle class kids. He's narrow-minded and probably doesn't know many people around here that are struggling. That very well could be the case. I mean, I'd be interested how many people I went to college with are actually feeling the pinch of what's going on. For those of you that are newer to the program, I got a very high SAT score and I had a very high GPA, so I got accepted into rich white people school. And I went to school with a lot of astronomically wealthy people, and I was naive as to how college actually worked. I was supposed to be networking then, and I was doing this stupid thing where I was just like trying to be friends with people, and I oftentimes wonder how many of them just kind of. I went to class with one guy who his last name was the same as the last name on the building that we were being taught in. Like, that's the kind of people that I was going to school with. And I oftentimes wonder how many of them see my clips on Facebook and socials. And they're like, oh, what happened? What happened to him? Because I was from a very different class of people than the majority of people that went to college with me. Phil, different Phil than before, says, if you're involved with youth baseball and the American Legion baseball, you're going to succeed in life, at least at the last 40 years. That's my take on the call. Yeah, look, I don't want to mock other callers. I mean, I can mock other callers. I don't want other people to mock other callers. So that's not what I want this to capitulate into. But I will say Dale has called a handful of times reflecting a housing market that really doesn't feel like that attitude is mirrored by most people physically experiencing that housing market. Brian doubled down to say, just wait till the shortage of diesel hits in July and August. Yeah, it's going to be ugly. I said it last 2 weeks ago. We will be begging for Biden-era inflation by the time November rolls around. And of course, Republicans will still be like, well, remember Biden? And then you just say, shut up, and you keep moving, because there comes a time when you just got to call a spade a spade. Sheila says, did you miss the fact? Was it guys, I'm not gonna. Yeah, no, don't apologize. I'm just saying. Yeah, okay. A lot of you guys are highlighting to me that the baseball team that was referenced was a private high school where tuition is above $10,000 a year. And of course, those families are going to go on per capita to do better. I did not know that, and you are exactly right. And for the record, I made a Jack and the Beanstalk reference because the story sounded that delusional. So I'm right there with you. I just, but I feel you. I think that call isn't based in a reality that most Americans feel. But there's going to be a contingency, much like you guys remember Clint out in West Virginia. No matter how bad the economy got under Joe Biden, he would call in to do his Waka Waka Blue MAGA shtick. And because it couldn't possibly be that bad, it's that millennials just don't want to work anymore. And now Dale and the MAGA front kind of do the same thing. It can't possibly be as bad as you guys say it are. We got the orange man in office. No, it actually, not only is it that bad, I actually am pulling my punches a little bit. It's actually much worse than that if you really start to break it down, which I could if you guys need me to. But so, yeah, of course, the private school. I went to private college, and I'm willing to bet all of those kids are doing well. Hell, all things considered, I'm doing all right compared to a lot of my peers. That's what happens in those kind of scenarios. It's having the empathetic capacity to acknowledge the benefits that you have in life and realize that a lot of people don't necessarily have those same benefits, and talking about the economy from that perspective. I'm telling you right now, I'll get real with you guys before a commercial break. An alternate reality where instead of my mom passing when I was 22 years old, it happened when I was 12. You guys absolutely do not hear my voice on the airwaves right now, because the second a family loses an income like that, you lose that structure, you lose that support. All of a sudden, the trajectory you're on is changed forever. And it is not the fault of anybody involved. And the only reason that I can empathize with it is because I went through it just in my young adult life instead of my young life. This is what everybody has to deal with all the time. And I think about it all the time. I think about how the Cominos family would have reacted to that kind of abrupt moment unexpectedly, and what so many people have to go through regularly. But that's just me, of course. Yeah. With that though, I mean, like, I think it's just a matter of the empathy, and I appreciate the background on the baseball team. For the record, it's not like I was going to leave today and be like, maybe I got it all wrong. Maybe the entirety of the country's attitude towards the housing market is wrong. Maybe both my dad and brother, that are immensely involved in the real estate industry, are just making it up when they talk to me about what they're experiencing. And maybe this one guy just knows better. That wasn't going to happen. That wasn't going to be a philosophy that I had, but I appreciate the insight nevertheless. We'll keep this conversation rolling. I'm going to reset. We need to get to commercial break, and we'll keep talking about this on the other side. Credit card debt hitting record levels. Unemployment staying at pretty standard rates, meaning we're working, we just ain't making enough. We're being charged too much in an economy that is showing no signs of reversing course, where both actual inflation mixed with corporate greed are strangling a larger and larger percentage of us. We're going to go to break, and we'll be back on the other side. You're listening to Outside the Box here on WHBY. Hey guys, Ben here. I want to tell you about my experiences with Valley Eye Associates. I use Dr. Smith. He's got 15 years of experience performing cataract and refractive surgery using the most advanced technology and surgical techniques, and he provides patient-centered, compassionate care to his patients. But what really stuck out to me was the post-operation. Very quick process, not even a 15-minute procedure, and realistically, it was barely even a 10-minute procedure. You're out. I took a middle of the day nap, which you don't got to twist my arm to do something like that. And by the next morning, it was like nothing even happened. I was driving down the road almost blown away at how crystal clear all the street signs and road signs were that I was used to seeing with glasses. I was up and back to work the very next day, and Valley Eye Associates made that possible. Go check them out right now. They've got a website, valleyeye.com. That's VALLEYEYE.com. And go sign up for a free consultation. They'll tell you what you're qualified for, what you're not qualified for, how much it will cost, and will tell you about the operation procedure itself. It's free and informative. It got me involved in the process, and I'm so happy I did it. Go check out that website today. Tell them I sent you. Yeah, I see people in my YouTube chat talking about the cost of children playing sports right now. I can only imagine. When one decent bat to play baseball costs like $200 or more, it's not hard to assume which families can afford to have their kid play in sports. And I know hedge funds have gotten pretty heavily involved. I did a segment on that a while ago about how much hedge funds have kind of bought all these different leagues and kind of raised the bar for entry. Because like stickball, hell, soccer, the reason soccer is the most famous sport in the world is because the cost of entry was so low, right? I mean, I don't know if it's actually true or not. This is like one of those old wives' tales that they taught you in public school when I was going there. But like, do I even say this? I hope this is accurate. Pele, like, he would put a newspaper in a sock, and him and his friends would kick like a sock filled with newspaper around when none of them could afford a soccer ball. And then you just kind of set up a fake goal, and like these kids that had not a cent to their name were able to figure out how to manufacture a soccer field. I hope that story's true. And and it's the same principle. And now we're kind of taking that principle and taking it into the whole opposite direction. I maintain, had I been born into a wealthy family, I'm probably an NHL goalie right now. I was very good at being a goalie, but cold day in hell that my parents were going to be able to afford just to let me play hockey in general, let alone go be a goalie. It's obscene. It was obscene when I was in school and stuff was actually affordable. Now, forget about it. I saw one thing. The average cost of a vacation these days is $2,000 for the week, like on average. So that like takes camping and doing it as cheap as you can and going to Disney World. What's wild is, and I think I've shared this before, but so when you grow up in Pittsburgh, the go-to spot for vacation is Ocean City, Maryland. It's not a fancy beach. Like you go in the water and you do the thing where like you don't want your hands to go in the water because it's too cold, and you lift them up and you just like kind of keep them in and you wade into the water, and then you can't see through the water. They've got cheap food options everywhere. The Cominos family used to go there in the 90s. It was $200 for the week for the hotel that we would stay at, and we were barely off the coast. And then we would have some obscene number, like $30 a day to feed a family of 4. And we did it incredibly achievably. It's not like we were eating lobster and prime rib every day, but you know what? I was 7 years old and have all these very fond memories of being at the beach, riding waves with my dad, going to Paul Revere's roast beef buffet, which cost $4.95 bleeping cents. And like, that's not a thing anymore. There was like a cost-effective way to do this stuff. And then if you did live in a yuppie family, then you got to go do the fancy beach stuff. But like everybody got some kind of beach-related memory. And like now that's not the case. I should do that. I might do that tonight. I might look and see what it costs to go to Ocean City, Maryland right now. And something tells me I'm about to be horribly depressed by how expensive that vacation has become. Because no shade, Ocean City. I grew up on it and I love you guys down there. It's not the nicest beach. Like you're walking, you don't have your sandals on, and like there's just like stones in the sand. Like it's not great. And so if that's where what costs were, and that was when I was alive. It's not like I'm sitting here being like, well, in 1942 people were able to get bread for a nickel. No, I'm saying when I was a kid, this was an achievable thing. And now you got two parents working and they're like, I don't think we're going to be able to swing a vacation this year. And like, how did we get here? I don't know. That's just me, of course. But yeah, if you're just joining us, the reason I bring up this cost of living crisis, credit card debt has hit the record point that it hit during the Great Recession. The difference is unemployment skyrocketed during the recession, and there really hasn't been that moment in 2026. It's just that everything is so expensive. This should be a cause for concern for everybody, and I don't care if you voted for Trump or not. There comes a time when you have to be willing to be like, all right, I voted for this guy for his economic prowess, because that's what happened in Trump 1, right? To be like, I don't like the way he says things, but I do like the trajectory the economy is on. And that's how people kind of sidestepped being able to get around that he's a good person. Hell, we've got somebody who's in the Graham Plattner fan club who listens to this show every day. I understand. I'm not saying I would have voted for Trump, but I get the logic, because you see Plattner show up. He gets caught with the Totenkopf tattoo. And I'm like, you know what? I like his messaging. I like his economics. Seems like the tattoo was a mistake. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. That in and of itself is Trump politics right there. Yeah, okay, he said this about Rosie O'Donnell, and I'd be really mad if someone said that about my mom, but here's how I'm directly benefiting from his presidency, so I'm going to ignore that. If Donald Trump showed up, excuse me, if Donald Trump showed up, did Medicare for all, and somehow addressed our record debt and deficit that we're dealing with at this point, I think a lot of people would be willing to look past the fact that he called a reporter a dumb person yesterday. It's when your economy is in absolute free fall and you're still trying to lean into it. You know, he went on I don't know if he doesn't do drugs or alcohol, so I'm not going to assume that it was a booze-filled rant, but it was over the entire evening complaining about the Obamas and all this random stuff. And he took time on his True Social posts to just like post videos of black people doing crimes for hours. And like, we all know what he's implying there. We know who he's talking to when he posts that kind of stuff. We know what the implication is when he shares this kind of thing. And it was always the kind of stuff that you just kind of ignored. You're like, all right, like, who is this actually for? And it used to go by and people were just like, well, that's Trump being Trump. But now that the economy is completely collapsing in around him, the him being a JAG routine isn't really resonating the same way that it did during Trump 1.0. And I think we need to be willing to call that out, because I'm willing to bet that the credit cards this time around are bipartisan. They don't care about what age you are. I could go brick for brick. Millennials and Gen Z don't see a prospect to buying a home. Gen X is going homeless at a rate comparable to the Great Depression for people in their 50s. People in their 80s are returning to work at levels never before seen. We have almost doubled the percentage of people in their 80s currently working to get by. You show me a generation, and I will show you a generation that is struggling in this current iteration of the economy. It is time to acknowledge the truth for what it is. And there will be a handful of MAGAs that are going to do the cult thing. And like, just let them, because the fact is they're not even 3 in 10 people in this country at this point. But pretending that these record credit card heights are coming because of Netflix, or because it's just the avocado toast in the Starbucks. I'm here to tell you right now that all of the data that I have showed you guys for the last 3.5 years is pointing to something different. We were trending this way under Biden. It was getting slightly better, not nearly fast enough, and that's why they ended up losing, the Democrats, that is. But objectively, everything is getting worse. Inflation has gone now from trending downward to trending back upward. Gas is now 50% more expensive than it was. Whether you're talking about credit cards, auto loans, school loans, everything other than mortgages, everything delinquency rate-wise is trending upwards. Fill in the blank here. Nothing is trending in the right direction other than cruelty to Mexicans and Somalis. We are 6 months away from an election right now. And the conversations on this show are probably going to get pretty real. And like, I've been wondering how I'm going to feasibly interview a conservative when they're trying to convince me that things have been trending in the positive direction under conservative rule, because I got to work on my professionalism a little bit, but things are not, they are bad right now. For everyone other than Dale, things are very, very bad right now. And it's scary. Like, I watch these numbers happen, and maybe it's because I'm an empath. Maybe it's because me using credit cards to literally buy food because I had no food still is in my mind's eye. Like, it wasn't long enough ago where I'm like, oh my God, that could happen to me tomorrow. But to see these kind of numbers and see people still trying to explain it away, be like, well, at least Iran has a nuke. You go find me one of those people that would have said that if Biden or Harris were president. Everything else happening exactly the same. If Harris bombed Iran's nuclear facilities, would those same people still be thrilled that Iran didn't have a nuke? I think we both know the answers. but I'm just speculating, of course. Justin says, I remember my Little League team sponsored by Flanagan Liquor Store and thinking nothing about it at the time. Absolutely love that. That sounds like some Bad News Bears kind of stuff right there. Chris says 40 trillion in debt and soaring inflation. Hate to be negative, but need to live in reality. Here's the deal, Chris, and this is actually a segment that I have planned for tomorrow. I'm actually going to have it posted on my socials later on this afternoon, and we'll go to break after I say this. If you eliminate the Trump, both of them, both Trump-era tax cuts for billionaires and Bush's tax cut for billionaires, there's basically no debt or deficit. It is almost exclusively brought about by handouts to the wealthiest people in this nation. And they convince, and you're a smart dude, Chris, but like really look into the data. They convince a certain percentage of the population to be against social programs so they can justify massive tax cuts for the wealthiest people. And the second you remove those tax cuts, it is quite literally the inverse. Like the entire debt and deficit is brought about, not entire, because it's not just tax cuts for rich. It's also endless wars. Between the endless wars that were started by a particular party and the tax cuts for rich that were passed by a particular party, there would be no more debt and deficit. And then that same particular party shows up and says, looks like we're going to have to cut Medicare because, these liberals just spend so darn much. Not on my watch. We got to get to break. 920-281-1150. We'll put a bow on this show before we wrap it up for Haley. All that's coming up in just a little bit. You're listening to Outside the Box here on WHBY. Celebrate May Beef Month with Nemus Southside Market and WHBY. It's your chance to win a quarter cow to stock your freezer. Head to WHBY.com to find the cow, tip the cow by clicking and enter to win. Come back daily for more chances to win as the cow will be grazing its way across the website throughout the month of May. It's time to go cow tipping with Nemus Southside Market and WHBY. And by the way, did I mention we have an app? There's actually a page about that on our website. May I suggest you going and checking that out in the near future? Hint, 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 hint. There we go. We'll be back. Jerry just simply saying, I'm glad you have that segment planned for tomorrow. Obviously, nothing crazy will happen in the next 22 hours. Yeah, I'm sure. Then how many times will I freaking advertise something? I'm serious. I had a segment planned yesterday, and I still haven't gotten into it that I cannot stress enough. In Georgia, the government is enacting eminent domain on 330 families so that they can build a data center that the public doesn't want. And we're sitting here in like one of the prime locations for data centers, given our proximity to fresh bodies of water. And like we are watching as the government just ignores eminent domain being enacted and taking land from families and public lands in the name of building stuff that nobody wants to see happen. And like, you know me, I'm not a fear monger. I don't try and get people all riled up for something that isn't happening, but I can see a very obvious scenario where that kind of mentality finds its way into our great states because of our proximity to water to put these things on, to get these things running. And there's all these other things. Like apparently they stole like $30 million worth of water and had no intention of coming clean or returning what happened. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's kind of like the same reason why these flock cameras were eliminated, because they lied about sharing info with ICE. They're like, yeah, Flock's not going to show ICE where everybody's driving. And then we find out they did 7,100 times. Like, nobody trusts these companies. Nobody wants to see these data centers get built. And when they're like, well, we'll let the people decide. And then the people decide, yeah, we don't want these. The government's like, well, we tried to be cool about it. We're building them anyway. And like, here we go. I know I'll have liberals on my side because it'll be happening during the Trump administration. But I'll be real with you. I don't see Kamala Harris behaving any differently. I would at this point. That would have been a really good 920-281-1150 moment, but we only have 90 seconds left. So I don't think we have time for any kind of calls or anything like that. Justin says eminent domain for a data center is just going to inevitably lead to another Bundy-style standoff. It absolutely could. It absolutely could, but I don't think it would be viewed as partisan as the Bundy situation was, because you got people on both sides of the aisle for plenty of different reasons that don't want to see this happen. Some of those reasons are more valid than others, but far be it for me to police whose reasons count more than others. But that's another story that we haven't got to, but I just did it in 2.5 minutes. Turns out I could cover a lot of news if I just only had 2.5 minutes to say anything. We got to go. Download the WHBY app. All you got to do is search WHBY in Google Play or in the App Store. It's free and easy to use. And follow me on my independent channels. I have a Ben Comino's YouTube channel. I have a TikTok channel. I have a Facebook channel. I stream the show live on all three of those places. It stays live forever on YouTube. It eventually goes away on TikTok and Facebook. But I'd highly recommend following me on all of those and downloading the WHBY app. Supports the local media if you're listening to me from outside of Wisconsin. That always goes a long way. Andrew, I'm going to look over this document you shared with me. I don't have time to jump into it right now, obviously. We've got Haley coming up next in just a few moments here, guys, and I'll be back tomorrow to jump into Trickle Down and plenty of other things. So stay tuned. Outside the Box, WHBY.